beauty contest for these units. We're looking at health and safety issues at first. I think it'd be worthwhile if I could just 1 minute introduce Phil Nichols and have him come and just 1 minute talk about his approach and how he works with the property owners, because Phil is a very unique individual. He doesn't come off hard and strong. He looks like a big old guy. Come up to the microphone, Phil. But Phil is very caring for tenants and for people who live in these conditions, and his style is to give the property owners, give them a way to improve the standard. He's not coming down as a heavy arm, but maybe that's a good question for Phil.
Good afternoon. Happy birthday, Mr. Mayor and Council. Going through the complexes, I've met several different types of owners, several different types of managements throughout Rancho Cordova. Some pretty reactive and responsive to what you talk to them about, and some not so reactive. But I take each individual on a case-by-case basis, typically, and typically I respond to a site, from a call from a tenant in regards to substandard condition. And then usually while I'm there, I kind of look around the complex to see, how well it's maintained in general. And then kind of work my way from there. If it seems like it's a new complex where they're not having too many issues, and they're just maybe some slight issues, then I'll talk to management about what they can do to start improving some of the real minor issues, like a few apartment complex on Data Drive. Most of those are fairly new, well-maintained complexes. But they do have issues like general wear and tear issues, or improperly contracted items which have been repaired, like some of the siding may be done wrong and maybe just need to be removed and replaced the correct way. And I typically go through those kind of complexes in which they're pretty good shape. I talk to the management, talk to the owner, let them know, hey, you got some minor concerns on your property. I know you've been doing a great job on it. Let's see some more improvements by maybe taking a look at this particular issue. On the more substandard complexes, owners seem to not respond so well. Typically don't call you back. So I usually come on to those guys with a pretty heavy hand. I initiate notice and orders right off for every violation I see, and then work it from there. If they're responsive, then we'll see some changes. Most of the ones that I've come into contact with, like some of the apartments we've talked about earlier in the slides here, have not been so responsive, and so it's really a hassle trying to get entry into some of the places, which is why the rental housing inspection is so important to us, because it allows us to just gain entry into the places where the owners just refuse to let us in to see what else is going on. And you can visually see from the exterior of the complex that the place is falling down, but they know, hey, if I let them in, I'm going to have to fix everything. I'm not going to let you in. They'll let you into the unit that the tenant called you about, and that's about it. The more responsive owners and landlords for some of the newer complexes and maintained complexes typically don't have any problem let you in. They'll let you in, walk through all their units with you, and you can see just by looking at them that they're just well-maintained complexes. And so hopefully, the ordinance will provide us with some way of gaining entry to some of these substandard places and just bringing up the entire housing stock to a more suitable housing standard. Our tenants really deserve it. There are some people out there that are really hurting for some help. You can tell when you kind of interview some of the people that you're inspecting their unit, they're just scared to talk to you because of fear of eviction, and you see it too. You see a tenant where you go out and their place has been inspected, and the next week they're on the street because there's little that you can do in regards to the landlord-tenant law. So hopefully this rental inspection ordinance will help us kind of act as a proactive middleman for that whole situation where tenants aren't having to bear the brunt of that interaction between their owners when they're scared like that.
We also will make available to all apartment owners and managers the checkoff sheet that we use for inspection, and we would ask that they do some self-inspecting too. We have one person now, so obviously we're not going to hit every apartment complex, every rental unit, but we're going to expect managers and owners to do self-inspections also.
We have one of those landlords who didn't want to work with us, and he got a $700 fine. He wrote us a $700 check, and now he's working very well with Phil, and we're really seeing some improvements in the complex. And I think part of it is going to be the education to let people know that we're serious about this. So we're really sure that this is going to make a huge improvement.
Okay. Other questions from council members? Mr. Cooley?
A question I've got, where does lighting fit into these state requirements? Some of the facilities have problems with exterior lighting that is not maintained. Daytime visit, you wouldn't necessarily see that, but that's a very important issue. Does that fit within the state health and safety requirements?
Yes, basically it's under just, there's one very broad lack of maintenance, so if it's there, it should work. So definitely we could work.
As long as it had lighting at a point in time.
Yes.
If it's no longer functional, that's.
Yes,
okay.
and some of the things that we're going to try to also draw in are some of the programs like the SMUD low-cost lighting. So we might make suggestions of things that can be done, and in addition to what they have that's very inexpensive. And we've also been working with Debbie Coyle from Rancho Cordova Police Department to do the SEPTED at the same time. So we're offering them as much incentive to work with us to make their life better, because a lot of times, I have to be honest, we go and the managers and owners are as frustrated as we are that they're having a problem because they keep fixing the thing over and it gets broken. And so we try to help them help themselves. It's not that we're going in there to give them a hard time. We're certainly absolutely not doing that, but we want to help the landlords and the tenants.
How about staircases when a stair is starting to deteriorate so that the front edge is actually broken? Is that a trip hazard that's well, I think this is a very good thing. I mean, I think if there's anything missing in the staff report, it's that at the time of the last census, over 50% of our housing in the city was rental housing. We have, as of the last census, over 11,000 rental units in the city. And, you know, we celebrated 2 students at Cordova High who were recognized for their academic accomplishments. And I think we as a city, to simply stand up and say that in our city, families and children that live here and live in our rental housing should have housing that meets the state standard, is actually to sort of drive a stake in the center of Rancho Cordova and say that, you know, we are about trying to support quality of life, quality accomplishment. It's consistent with the Weed and Seed program and the efforts of our law enforcement generally in the community. You know, I think regrettably, you know, we became a city because we saw a lot of neglect. Historically, we had the largest concentrations of Section 8 housing in the county here in Rancho Cordova, not attended to, out of sight, out of mind. And, you know, I think it is important to kind of focus and say it's not acceptable. You know, a going forward concern will simply be to watch to make sure it is adequately funded to achieve these objects. But I think the direction of really using the housing stock fee to the extent it is in place today and coupling that with a more punitive approach where we really go after folks that are not maintaining it, I think those are the people who need to get their attention and change how they view maintaining this sort of housing in our city. So I think it's good.
And just one additional thing, Councilmember Cooley, the other thing we do is we try to keep a list of resources. So, for example, if we come across a place where maybe the housing needs some help and we're working with the landlord, but we see some children that are having problems, we work with the ladies from No Child Left Behind. So we try to have all our resources in place that maybe the tenant just needs a little bit of help. We do a little bit of that social aspect too, because the people are really important to us.
McGarvey?
Yes, I had a phone call today, and I said that I would bring this up for them, that they think that would be, this ordinance we're talking about passing tonight would be Big Brother going into their property. That being said, I have a question about the difference in the County of Sacramento codes and what we're doing tonight. How much of a change is that? Is it that much of a big change, or that just wasn't being done by the county?
Well, as far as the language in the codes, there's not a lot of change as far as the cleanup items at the beginning. It's just more or less keeping it consistent with the practices of the city. So, for example, the notice and orders, we wanted to make sure we had more information than what was required before. As far as the rental housing inspection program, part of the ordinance, that's completely new. That was not in the county code. There is where we're going from reactive to proactive. Instead of waiting for the complaint to come in, we're going out and actually inspecting the properties. And as far as the comment